In Exodus chapter 8, the second of the plagues that were brought upon the Egyptians carries with it some interesting details. It's been utilized as a subject for sermons for a great number of years. And it lends itself to a lot of different applications. I want to try to stay within the context of what we find in this chapter, chapter 8, and chapters following. But that second plague, verse number 6 of Exodus chapter 8. Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and frogs came up and covered the land of Egypt. The magicians did so with their enchantments and brought up frogs in the land of Egypt as well. Verse number 8, Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, "Entreat the Lord that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I'll let the people go that they may sacrifice to the Lord." Verse number 9, Moses said to Pharaoh, "Accept the honor of saying, when I shall intercede for you, for your servants, and for your people, to destroy the frogs from you and from your houses, that they may remain in the river only." You get to decide when these frogs disappear. Verse number 10, Pharaoh says, "Tomorrow." Are you kidding me? One more night with the frogs. We've talked about it in years past. If you are one of the individuals, servants that are actually surrounding Pharaoh and taking care of every whim and every need there in the throne room, or if you are somebody in an audience, if there is an audience that exists, or maybe some member of the royal family, and you're thinking about this particular problem, you've got frogs everywhere, and Moses says, "Well, tell me when you want them to disappear." And you hear Pharaoh say, "Tomorrow." What kind of thoughts go through your mind? Are you kidding me? I want them gone yesterday. One more night with the frogs. I want to use that word frogs as an acronym, because you see problems that actually compound one another in this and the following chapters. To begin with, in verse number 8, Pharaoh, when he calls for Moses, says, "Entreat the Lord that he may take away the frogs from me and from my people, and I'll let the people go and sacrifice like you've asked already." It's a problem of the futility around getting rid of these frogs and the frustration. Futility and frustration in the mind of Pharaoh, and he's given the opportunity to say, "When do I remove these?" And you don't say right now, you don't say this afternoon, you don't say tonight. You say tomorrow. It's like, okay, I think I want to wallow in my misery just a little bit longer. It doesn't make any sense. If you're really frustrated, do something about it to get rid of that frustration. Don't be living in that kind of futility. So they take away the frogs. Moses did exactly what is requested in verse 13. The frogs died out of the houses, the courtyards, and the fields. They gathered them together in heaps. Verse number 15, but when Pharaoh saw that there was relief, he hardened his heart and did not listen to them, did not heed them, as the Lord had already said. Because God had told Moses, Pharaoh's not going to let you go. We'll have situation after situation, and the heart of Pharaoh the stubbornness of Pharaoh is going to be very much in evidence in what happens. So after that frustration, after the futility of not being able to actually solve the problem and having somebody else solve it for him, Pharaoh has a rebelliousness of rejecting any kind of good that actually has been done on his behalf. And that kind of rejection shows up over and over and over again. For example, at the very end of this chapter, Pharaoh hardened his heart, verse 32. Chapter 9, verse 7, Pharaoh hardened his heart. His heart became hard. Verse 12 of chapter 9, he hardened his heart. What's involved leading up to that, in verse number 19 of chapter 8, even the magicians tell Pharaoh, "This is not us, this is the finger of God." That's the way that they worded it. But Pharaoh's heart grew hard, and he did not heed them, just as the Lord had said. So you've gone from rebelliousness, you've gone from rejection to an obstinance that knows no boundaries, an obstinance that a hatred, a mindset where I will not give in no matter how many of the people around me suffer in the process. Even when those around Pharaoh say, "This isn't us, we can't actually duplicate this, this is something that's beyond us." Get rid of the problem. And time again, Pharaoh's heart is hardened. Kind of a little side note, sometimes you find the statement that Pharaoh hardened his heart. Sometimes you find the statement that the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. Now, which way is it? Is that a contradiction? The answer is no. And we used this illustration before, so please bear with me again. If you take a block of clay and a block of wax out on a very hot summer day and put them on a picnic table in the backyard, leave them all day long, you come back at sunset, what do you find? Well, the block of clay has become hard, almost like a brick. The block of wax no longer exists, just a wax coating on that part of the table. Same heat, same sun, same day, different results. So what caused the difference? It's a condition of the material with which you are working. The obstinance of Pharaoh, the idea for the ruler of Egypt, and you see that in other places as well. The Romans did that as well. The Caesars were classified as living deity. That kind of inflated ego, that kind of narcissistic behavior is something that creates its own problems. I'm not about to give in. So who hardened Pharaoh's heart? Well, he hardened his own heart. But God hardened it as well by giving him those kind of situations which he knew that narcissistic mindset would not accept. Futility, frustration, rebellion and rejection, obstinance. What about the letter G? In chapter 10, the plagues have continued. In chapter 10, the statement is made about locusts that will cover the fields everywhere. They'll fill your houses, the houses of the Egyptians. Pharaoh's servant said in verse number 7, "How long shall this man be a snare to us? Let the men go that they may serve the Lord their God. Do you not yet know that Egypt is destroyed?" Don't want to let them go. Locusts, darkness, the plagues that show up in this chapter 10. But it's not just obstinance anymore. It's a grumbling that continues to grow louder and louder by the populace of Egypt. Even those advisors around Pharaoh, there's a statement again. "How long shall this man be a snare to us? Let the men go. Let them go that they may serve the Lord their God. Do you not yet know that Egypt is destroyed?" The venomous attitude that you've had against Moses and against the God of the Hebrews, against the problems that we have faced, is destroying us, and you don't care. Frustration, rejection, obstinance, grumbling. What about the letter S? Chapter 10, verse number 10. Pharaoh says to Moses and Aaron, "The Lord had better be with you when I let you and your little ones go. You have actually planned evil." Then he says in verse 11, "No, go now, you who are men. I'm not going to let the little ones go. I'm not going to let your children or your women go. If you want to go, you take the men and go, but the rest of your families, all your possessions, they stay here. I'm only going to give in if you do it my way." There is a spitefulness about Pharaoh that brings about his doom. And by the time you get to the statement in verse number 11, they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. He makes a statement at the end of chapter 10. Pharaoh says, "Get away from me, take heed to yourself, and see my face no more, for the day that you see my face, you shall die." Little does he know that last plague is the death of his firstborn son. You've got to remember that to begin with, when that first request, demand, was made before Pharaoh, it was, "Let us leave and go sacrifice our God in the wilderness, lest he afflict us and bring problems upon us." Pharaoh wouldn't go along with it. Because of that, Pharaoh brought problems upon his own people, upon Egypt, which could have been avoided, but was not. Because of that frustration that turned into rebellion, that was seen in that obstinance, that created grumbling that grew and grew, and that spitefulness within the life and mind of Pharaoh that caused his demise. Those items still exist. It's amazing how the stories that you find, these events that are recorded in Exodus, fit so many situations as far as application goes. We need to live in situations that we're not plagued by these particular frogs in our life. Not now, not ever. But if you look around, you still see people dealing with all of those items and those characteristics, even in this 21st century. Please stay safe. We'll talk again soon.